Hello, my name is Heather Wensler, and I appreciate you tuning in today. Following the presentation, I will provide my contact info, so be sure to stay tuned. Thanks again. So, let's get this thing started. So looking at how we can create escape rooms using OneNote. Now, if you've never done an escape room, basically a physical escape room is literally it's a series of tasks that a group of people must perform, problems to solve, everyday problems, could be math, could be computer related, whatever. And in order to escape the room that this group is located in, they have to complete these tasks. They have to solve these puzzles. And when they do, the doors open and they can leave. So this can be as complicated or as simple as you'd like. And there's a couple of things to do to prepare for an escape room activity. First is to come up with your plan. Now you can use existing materials. You don't have to create anything new. So think about a unit that you are currently getting ready to teach. The activities that you would have your students do can become the escape room activities. So how do you plan for this? Well, I found that the easiest way to do this, and this is a twofold process. First, open the class notebook if you're using the class notebook in Teams. If you're not using the class notebook in Teams, that's okay, because you can create a class notebook from outside Teams. You can do that in Office at office.com. So I've gone ahead and I've gone to office.com here. And if I look on my left-hand side, this is where my menu items are. If I look, I notice there's a OneNote icon, and I'm going to need that in a bit. But what I really need to do is find my class notebooks. So I'm going to come up to the waffle in the upper left corner next to Office 365. And when I do that, more of my apps appear. And I notice I have this class notebook app. So when I click on it, it's going to ask me first to sign in. So yes, I shall do that. And I'm just going to follow the steps and create a class notebook. So if you already have one for your team, use that. There's one thing you want to make sure that you include when you're creating the notebook, and that is to use the teacher only section, because that's a great place to store all of your lesson plans, but in particular, great for doing escape rooms. So I've gone ahead and I've opened my class notebook. And here's that teacher only space. Again, I'm the only one who can see it. My students have no access to it. So it's a great way to hold things that I then want to distribute or copy into a notebook at a later time. So I created another section down here at the bottom. It says that I can add a section. So I did. And I'm thinking about my Unit 2 in science. And I'm going to create the escape room for that unit. So I just added a section called Science Unit 2. Now, when you're doing escape rooms, there's a series, essentially it's a series of activities, and each activity or each task has to be completed before the next one can be opened or released to the student. So it requires a series of activities along with some password protected sections. So the students have to complete an activity, a project, have it approved by you, the teacher, and then receive the password, which then gives them access to the next series of activities. Essentially, that's all it is. So here's my recommendation. And again, there are lots of different ways to do this, but as a teacher, I found this to be the simplest way. So again, I'm using that teacher only section in my existing class notebook. I usually have a beginning section where I give the instructions for the tasks, kind of the overall goals and objectives for this unit, this activity, this series of activities, my expectations, how they're going to be graded, etc. In this area is where I would record a video of myself describing everything they're going to do, describing my expectations. I'll also type all of that out. Again, hitting multiple modalities here. Then I'm going to have the first task. The first task, when I do them, it's usually an individual task. So one task, one thing that they have to do. Once they have submitted the task completion, whether it's a piece of writing, it's a lab, it's an artifact that they've created, whatever the task is, once it's created, they submit it to me for approval. When I approve it, I send them the password, which then unlocks the group activities. Again, it's really hard with hybrid learning. It's easy to forget that the students definitely need to have those opportunities to work together, to collaborate and cooperate. And I think that doing escape rooms is a great way to build that. And the types of activities that I place here are going to depend on a number of factors. It's going to depend on my students themselves, how old they are, what their ability levels are, and what the subject content area is will determine what types of group activities I do and how many there are. Again, with older students, they can be much more complex, and there can also be more activities that they are required to do. And that goes for any of the tasks. It all depends on your students. Once the group activities are completed, the group submits their artifact, whatever it is that they're supposed to complete. Once they all get the go-ahead, I send the password. Then they go to some individual activities. And again, these are just for individual students, and it will depend on the age, the content area, the ability, how many activities I want them to do. So you can make this as long or as short of an escape room experience as you'd like. Again, just consider your students, your individual group of kids. Once the individual activities are completed and submitted and I've approved, I send the next password, and that goes to the final task. And the final task is one culminating task. This is my synthesizing, summarizing, think about the highest level of Bloom's here. This is where they're putting it all together. All of the activities have led to this particular task. Once it's completed, they send it to me. Once I've accepted, approved, etc., I send them the final password. And that is because I like to have my students do a reflection on their learning. Once they complete the reflection, the really cool part here is I can turn this page that the student completes, I can turn that into a PDF and send it to the family so the family can see what the student has gained from this group of activities. The last one that I create is a passwords section, because with OneNote, if you're going to password protect a section, if you lose the password, you can never get back into it. You have to delete it. Not even Microsoft can open it for you. So it's really important to store those passwords, which is why I like the teacher only section, because I don't have to remember where I put all the passwords. They're right here in the passwords section. So that's kind of how I do it. And for each of these sections, I record myself either audio and or video. I also have the instructions typed out, the expectations, any rubrics, all of that information. I'm going to pre-plan here. That way I don't have to worry about it when it's time to launch the actual escape room. All right, so now that I have created my plan, I have my plan in place, it's time to create the new notebook. So how do I do that? Well, first I'm going to go to office.com and I'm going to locate the OneNote app icon on the left. Once I do, it will open the OneNote page, and I simply click the plus new notebook at the top, give it a name, and then my notebook opens. And so here it is, my Science Unit 2 Escape Room. Now you'll notice there are no sections, there are no pages, there is nothing. So what I have to do is take my information that I created in my teachers only section, and I just need to copy and paste it into my new notebook. Now I've gone ahead and opened a different demonstration for escape rooms just because this has some writing on it. And again, all I'm going to be doing is copying and pasting. Now, before I begin, I'm going to come down into my passwords tab, And I'm just going to make sure that I label my passwords, that I get my passwords set in advance. Passwords in OneNote are case sensitive. Again, if you lose the password, there is no way to recover the information on that section. So make sure you record the passwords before you try to password protect anything. Speaking from experience here. So again, here at the Welcome tab, this very first tab, this is where I'm going to do the overview for the unit, what I want my students to get out of this. I will use video recordings. I will record myself. I might have some YouTube videos or other educational videos that I want my students to all have access to. I'm not going to password protect the Welcome tab. Again, I want every student here. I don't want them to have to work to enter and learn. Same thing for my opening task. I want all of the students to be able to get to whatever my opening task is. I could, in my Welcome tab, have a riddle, a joke, something that all students would know the answer to, and that could be the password to start the opening task. But my recommendation is don't do a password protection on tabs 1 or 2. So your opening task, again, you want all your students to start. Use that video or audio or both to introduce what the task is, provide typed instructions, use multimedia as it is appropriate. Now, there's a couple of different ways to do this. The final question, it could be a final question like an assessment question about the learning, the goals and objectives for this particular activity. And the answer to that question is the password to get to group activities. Or you could have your students do some kind of artifact, a piece of writing, a photograph, a drawing, whatever it is, a lab report. And that could be that what they submit to you, they can do that through Teams as an assignment. They send it to you, and when you approve it, you send them a password. So if that's the way you're going to do it, make sure again that your passwords, that you know what they are so that you can give them to your students. All right. So once they get to the group activities, this is a series of collaborative assignments. You can do one assignment and can do multiple assignments. And again, it really just depends on the topic, depends on you, the teacher, your students, their ages, their abilities. You can divide your students into groups, and again, they have to work together. All parts from all students must be submitted at the same time completely and accurately, or they don't get the password. So it can't be one person does everything. Have it so that each person is responsible for submitting a piece that makes the whole. Again, provide your audio and video, give them the expectations, the rubrics, everything. Now, these tasks, they could be scaffolded upon one another, or they could be independent group activities. Choice is yours. Again, just depends on what your needs are. But whatever it is, once they submit the answers, the project, the whatevers for your group activities, then you provide the passwords. And then they move on to their individual activities. And again, provide the multimodal way of giving them the information that they need. All parts should be submitted in order to get the password sent to them. And of course, won't the students just share the password to everyone? It's possible, but you'll be tracking. So you'll notice if students start skipping things and moving ahead, then you can address it, or you could offer some kind of bonus or a prize to the team or the person who finishes first. So that would keep them quiet so that they don't share with each other if there's a little competition, friendly competition involved. Again, though, that just depends on your students and your classroom and the way your students work together. Again, just like before, these individual activities, they could be scaffolded. It could be one, it could be a few activities, all depends on you. And then they have their final task. And again, this is just a single summative task. They have to put together some kind of artifact that summarizes, synthesizes the learning. Things like flip grids, It could be a Wakelet collection. It could be a PowerPoint, whatever. From here, you could have a password to go to the reflection. You don't have to. It just depends on you and your students. And then the reflection piece. Again, this is optional. I like to do it with my students. I like to have a little bit of flair in here, like you see. So I just put a GIF in there. And basically I did like a 3, 2, 1 or a 1, 2, 3, if you will. And then when the student submits this, I can turn this individual reflection page, I can save it, and the student is able to, I can save it as a PDF and I can send it to the family so that the family can see what their student learned from doing this activities. And I've gone ahead and actually recorded the how to do this. So let's take a look at what we can do. Now I have all of this information here, and I need to get it to my science unit. The easiest way to do that, I'm going to come over to my new OneNote notebook. Down at the bottom left, I'm going to add a section, and this is going to be the begin here or the welcome section. I'm going to add the second section ahead, which is my first task. And I'll add another section. That'll be my group activities. I'll add the fourth section. This is my individual activities or activity, depends on you, of course. After the individual, there's going to be the final task. And then I'm going to add my reflection. Nothing else, that's all I need. Come back up here to begin here. And I'm going to just simply whatever I've created, whatever I've planned for in my class notebook in the teacher section, I'm just going to copy and paste it into each of my tabs. So once it's created, it's all done. Now, to password protect, I have to open this in the desktop app. So let's look at how we can password protect the sections to prevent students from just going at it on their own, in their own way. All right, so the next piece again is to open this up in the OneNote desktop app. I'm on Windows 10, and that's the only way that we're able to do password protection. So all I did was in the web-based app, I just clicked open in desktop app, and it did. And so here we are. Now it's a little different in the desktop app. First, you notice the tabs are along the top. So these are our section tabs. So when I click on each one of these, I get to the next activity. Now, I've also numbered each of my tabs. And that's because I want to make sure that the students know the order in which they're going to be moving through. So that's just kind of a thing that I do. So how do I password protect? Well, again, I'm not going to password protect my welcome and instructions. I could do a password on our first task, although the password would need to be something that all students would be able to answer easily. So, what color is the grass? What color is the sky on a clear day? Something super simple that everybody could know. And that would be good to just give them that practice of this is how you open the sheet. So if I want to password protect, it's really simple. Again, you have to be in the desktop app. I'm going to right mouse click on any one of my tabs. When I do, I have some options in a menu. So if I just scroll down, you'll notice there's a lock that says password protect this section. When I click on it, a menu on the side will open and I can set a password. And again, this password I will want to make sure is recorded in my passwords tab. So if I do set the password, I'm going to type it once, I'm going to type it twice, and I'm going to click OK. And there's even this caution here. Once, if you do lose the password, it cannot be recovered. The page is gone. You have to start over. So just be very careful when you enter passwords that you are entering it correctly. So what does that look like when it's done? Well, first, I know if I click on group activities, I had previously protected it. This is what my students are going to see if they try to get to the section without the password. They won't be able to. All they have to do is click and then they type in the password. But they won't know the password until I give it to them. So let me come to my passwords section. I made some very generic ones. I'm just going to highlight, copy, and I'm going to paste it in and click OK. And then everything appears. And that's the exact process that your students are going to follow to get through each of these activities. So you set your passwords, you password protect everything. All right, so I'm going to leave these first two tabs open, and then my password protected tabs are 3, 4, 5, and 6. So now I'm ready to send my OneNote out to my students so that they can begin the activities. Now, if I'm doing group activities, I'll want to pre-assign my students to groups so that they know where they're working. Now, I could do that in the classroom notebook. I could give them a collaboration space, a section within the collaboration space, or I could create a private channel for each group of students so that they can communicate and work together. There's a couple of different ways to do that. So I'm ready to send. All I want to do is click lock all, and then all of my sections become password protected. And I need to do that before I share. So what I'm going to do now, I need to get this out to my students. So I'm going to click File, and I'm going to choose Share. And I can choose how I want to share this. And in this case, I want to share with people. So I can type the names of my students, and then I choose whether they can edit or view. Now, I want my students to be able to view only. So I'm going to simply click on the name of the person. I'm going to click on this little person icon. This is my address list. And I can locate the students here. Again, because I have a classroom team, all I have to do is look for the name of my classroom team, and I can send it all at once. I don't have to type individual emails. Once I'm done, again, I've got everyone in here. I can include that personal message that tells them, hey, make sure that you check in here. We're going to get this started. Give them whatever information you want them to have. You could also get a sharing link if that is easier. Again, if I click Get Sharing Link, I only want to give my students the view link because I don't want them to change the pages. I just want them to be able to interact with it. So I'm going to highlight, and in this way, I can post it in a Teams posting in a conversation. If we're using email or if I'm using some other messaging service, I can post that link there, and all of the students will be able to view and interact, but not change anything within. So that's how I'm going to set everything up. So let's look at an example, and I will provide these resources for you as well at the end of the webinar here so that you can explore these rich resources and get inspired. Thanks again for joining me today. I hope you found the video helpful. Please don't hesitate to email me at wensleredconsulting@gmail.com if you have any questions or need support. To access all of my videos, my monthly newsletter, and more, head over to my website, wensleredconsulting.net. If you liked the video and want to see more, head over to my YouTube channel to like and subscribe. Again, thank you and cheers.